Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons by people who love The Simpsons, about how much, we hated The Simpsons. We're here trying to find which is the worst episode ever, and my name is Dan.
And my name is Jack.
And we are back with another episode. We're re-upped for another week. Today we are going to be watching Season 13's Brawl in the Family, originally aired January of 2002. Jack, have you seen this one?
Maybe. January 2002, I was...
We were both in high school.
Oh, we were in high school, so maybe
Yeah.
I was still watching it at the time.
I probably have seen this one. I don't remember a thing about it.
We might have been watching it to prep for our Simpsons quizzes that we used to take the Monday morning.
Yeah, it's not surprising that we ended up doing a Simpsons podcast.
Although, no, those were about the syndication episode. Didn't we take a quiz every day about syndication? Because I remember I cheated. I remember I used to always look...
You son of a bitch. I never cheated. That's why I'm hosting Simpsons Trivia, and you're just attending. If you're wondering what quizzes we did, a classmate of ours would make Simpsons quizzes and give them to us.
Yeah, I guess.
These are the things you do when there's no girls in your high school.
That was one of the things.
This is one of the things. So we don't really know much about this episode. It is Brawl in the Family, like I said, and we want to thank the people who have suggested this episode to us. Mr. Steve Schrader, thank you for suggesting this one.
Thank you, Steve.
And someone named @Armory the Iceberg.
Oh,
I'm guessing that's a Twitter handle.
Of the Connecticut
Of the Norfolk Icebergs. Armory, did you watch The Simpsons on Sunday?
Yes.
Did you record your voiceover for Laugh Command?
Yes. End scene.
All right. So thanks, everybody, for downloading the show. We hope you like what you hear. Tell your friends and rate us on iTunes, all that good stuff. And if you like the show and you want to support what we're doing here, go to wepodcast.com. Click through those Amazon links. You guys are really good about that, but more. How do you like it? Click through. Just click the banners that you see on the website. If you don't see them, by the way, turn off that ad blocking software. Let the ads come through.
Let them in.
Come on, man.
It's a party.
Let them in. We won't infect your computer.
And if you're having sex, don't use condoms.
Words of wisdom from Jack McCone. We thank you for clicking through the Amazon links, and we're going to take a quick break. We're going to watch the episode. For you, it'll be seamless. There'll probably be some sort of relevant sound clip from the episode. It'll take mere moments, and we're going to do that right now.
Yeah, I'm looking for Homer Simpson.
Oh, it's the woman I married in Vegas.
Oh!
Homer, you're a bad man, and your seed should be wiped from the earth. No offense, children.
That was Brawl in the Family.
Sure was, Jack. Let's get the plot recap out of the way. Real quick, there was a hedge couch gag. There was a guy cutting the hedges.
It was cute. It was fine.
It was short, sweet. It was great.
Nothing to say about
loved
it.
it. Nothing to say about that. And then the episode begins with acid rain. I can't remember where there was. The Republicans. Yeah.
Right.
So it begins with a Republican meeting about how they decide to kill the environment to help the GOP's cause. That causes acid rain. Acid rain kills the TV antenna. So now the Simpsons have no TV. So they play Monopoly, which causes a huge fight. They break out into a fight.
As Monopoly tends to do to families.
Of course. So they go to jail and are assigned a social worker played by Delroy Lindo, who he decides the way to get the family back on track is to have them problem solve some kind of task.
Yeah.
They go to the woods. They solve a crisis. Everything looks to be back at normal. The family's happy again, and that's when the Vegas wives show up. The Vegas wives from season 10, 11? Season 10, where Flanders and Homer accidentally marry two Vegas call girls, hookers. I don't know what the hell they were supposed to be.
Yeah, I think they were like cocktail waitresses who
they were
alluded to in this that they are also hookers.
That they're also whores. So that's actually what the episode is about. Marge is very mad at Homer that he has his second wife. And I guess that's what you call the A-plot, even though it's, almost, it's more like an act and a half, really.
Yeah.
The episode's got an interesting structure. We'll get into that, I guess.
Well, it's interesting. Well, let's get into it a little bit now. I just want to say, I would guess the episode is kind of about infighting in the Simpson families, and it's called Brawl in the Family.
Yeah.
So Act 1 is ultimately they're fighting over the game of Monopoly. The second act is they're fighting with the kind of fighting with the social worker, and then they have to do something, and they come together in their own dysfunctional way, and then that's all blown apart, and then they have to come together to defeat the Vegas wives.
It's almost like one of the 3 vignette, like a Halloween or a Bible story episode.
Kind of.
It would have been
like
kind
the
of
3 challenges of the
If
Simpsons.
they were just a little bit more individual. I'm not complaining. I don't mind them playing with the structure. I don't believe that a structure always has to be Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
No, I liked the structure of this episode, actually.
I like movies that fuck around. Full Metal Jacket. 2 acts.
Yeah. People give a shit about, well, maybe they don't give a shit, but people praise the first half of Full Metal Jacket a lot more than the second half. Both halves are good. The first half's
great.
Clearly better, I would say.
It's more
memorable.
It's more memorable because there's a million Vietnam movies, and even though they're all very different, and Full Metal Jacket's a great
all
one.
those movies, they weren't directed by the Coobs.
Yeah, and
S-Coobs, as I like to call them. Scooby-Doo.
the sniping scene's amazing.
That's a great movie. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Me neither. So we're
going to take a break. We're going to watch Full Metal Jacket.
So, and then the B plot, I guess you would call, of that act is Flanders also has to deal with his wife, and we'll get into that as well.
We'll get into that.
But
I got stuff to say on that.
He's too clean for her, and then that's that story.
Right.
So that's basically it. We'll get into more details as we get along. So why don't we start at the beginning? It opens up with an exterior shot of Republican Springfield
Republican Party headquarters.
Oh, it's just Republican for the National Republican.
Oh, I don't know.
It's really Springfield.
I don't remember if it's Springfield.
It doesn't say, but if it doesn't say, it's still kind of hinted that it's Springfield.
Yeah.
But we've seen this location before.
Yeah, love it. Classic.
But I just even though I like that. A lot of in the classic era, they did always have these establishing shots. It'd be like the nuclear power plant with you'd hear the bird going by, or the supermarket with the cart rolling in the street.
Here we have like the Halloween kind of horror-ish sting.
Yeah, the lightning is flashing.
Exactly.
So it just gets you,
the dark color palette.
Right. Yeah, you get situated. It's real quick. You feel at home. It was very nice to see that, and I think we'll talk about this a lot throughout the episode. This is season 13. It's right at the it's right after the classic era, and it's right before the show really turned into whatever it is now.
Yeah. This is the first half of the series. If they make jokes about how they've had 280 adventures, they had 280 more.
We keep saying classic, post-classic, post-post-classic, early teens. I think another good way to demarcate the Simpsons run so far would be using a note from Dante Alighieri and doing so you could call the classic era the first 8 seasons Paradiso,
right?
And then what we're watching now, I guess, would be Inferno. So this is season 13, 12, 11. That's kind of Purgatorio.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The mountain of Purgatory. So anyway, I noticed a lot of things that reminded me of the old times, and then a lot of like rumblings of what was to come.
I feel the same way throughout the entire episode.
I guess as we come across them,
we'll point them out.
But yeah, that was very reminiscent of the old show. Was starting out with the Republican, and we said, we've seen them before, and it was the same cast. When
it was slightly different, actually. So, I can't. What happened? The Sideshow Bob Roberts episode might have been the first time we saw them.
Was that the first time Dracula was Dracula?
Yeah, Dracula was a part of it then. The Rich Texan was there then. Mr. Burns was obviously
Rich Texan wasn't this?
He was.
I didn't realize he was around that early.
Pretty sure.
That might have been his debut.
That might have been his debut, actually. Yeah.
He got his start.
We'll get our intern on that.
Republican Texan.
We'll get our intern on that. He'll come back with the answer soon.
That mouse in my kitchen.
Yep. You got it, guys. I'm gonna go search the Googles. I'm a mouse.
And he talks.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into the bus stop later.
The silent. I guess you got to do the wacky voices because silent characters don't really play well on the podcast.
No, like that other mouse who lives in your living room.
Yeah, how's he doing?
I think he's dead, actually. You should. That's what that smell is. I thought it was just you.
No, it's my dead mouse.
No, I was just gonna say the cast is slightly different from at least from that first appearance because Dr. Hibbert was a part of it then.
Oh, really?
And he's not in there now. Instead, they had Ralph Nader was in there, saying you've done enough for the Republican Party. That felt more like maybe not like a now episode joke. But that felt like something they wouldn't have done. It was too on the nose, I thought, for like the classic Simpsons.
Right. I think in general, this entire Republican scene was, like we said, there's some parts that fell on the classic era, the Paradiso, and some that fell on the Inferno.
Right.
I think for the most part, the sequence was the Inferno. Was the post. So the very first joke is they talk about how They got Strom Thurmond. Animatronics.
Yeah.
They brought Strom Thurmond, who was a senator who was very old at the time and had been he ran for president in 1948.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I didn't
And
know
he was
that.
still alive at the time.
Yeah.
In 2002 when this aired.
I knew he was a very old white man.
So anyway, they go, thanks to animatronics, we've brought him back, and they pan over to him.
Right.
He slowly raises up. He takes a step and he says, 20 more terms. I like the 20 more terms line, but that it was so slow. It was so dragged out. Like, they were really just taking forever to get to the joke. And we knew what the joke was already. The joke is he's old and animatronic, blah, blah.
Right.
We've talked about this lots of times on the show.
Yep.
So, and then again, this is season 13, so it's relatively early. And it was like, oh, here they go with they already lost their sense of pacing and
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, it was on the nose, I think. It's just like, let's take pot shots at some notable Republicans.
Yeah.
Like Bob Dole comes out and reads from the Necronomicon, and we actually see Bob Dole read from the Necronomicon.
So
you liked that a little bit?
I like that.
More?
So yeah, I'd say that's the button of the episode, and I'd say that's the one that reminded me of the classic Simpsons. Because the joke is pretty much Bob Dole's way of speaking, doing the Necronomicon, and the fact that that's the Republican. Yeah. It's playing into the fact that the Republican has evil castle headquarters and Dracula's.
Yeah, I love that the Republicans are cartoonishly evil. That's always great.
So I thought the Necronomicon was a nice touch, and I like the idea of Bob Dole reading it. And I was thinking about it. I was like, all right, how is Jack the Critic going to talk about this on the show? Because that's how I have to watch it. And I could see us easily going, oh, Bob Dole, it's dated. But the show has made plenty of jokes in the classic years about how, like, they have Larry King read the Bible, and it's funny because of who the person is. I forget what the line is. This is season 2, but the first line Larry King has is
the San Antonio Spurs are going to go all the way this year.
Yeah, but I just remember when he starts reading the Bible, he's like, all right, let's start this thing. He says something, and it's just really just great, very understated.
No,
anyway,
stuff.
I like that, but you're right. I think there's different distinct problems in this scene. So you're right about the on the nose. Ralph Nader, very dated, very on the nose.
The dated thing doesn't bother me because they always did satire, but this wasn't so much satire. It was like very direct jokes.
Yeah. And all right, so I guess you're right. I mean, the Strom Thurmond I don't think that's the problem. I think the Strom Thurmond was the pacing and the structure.
Maybe it's just Ralph Nader.
And then the one other joke I also thought was lazy was where I think Rich Texan or one of them says we should do something about the hippies, or maybe it wasn't Rich Texan.
Yeah, it might have been Dracula who said that because Texan said we got rid of the environment in Texas and it helped out.
And it's just like, all right, you don't like hippies.
Yeah.
So
it was whatever.
So in general,
that was some wasted Dracula, in my opinion.
It's no old Dracula fingers.
Did somebody call me?
I was just referencing you.
All right. What is this mouse doing here? I'm terribly afraid of mice.
I'm going to cut all that mice stuff. I don't want to turn that into a runner.
Well, what about our intern? I mean, your intern. I mean, I work for you. I mean, is this even the same voice? No. Yeah, so they ultimately decide they're going to take away all the environmental laws in Springfield so that it would kill the environment because they're cartoonishly evil.
Although that's pretty much happened in real life.
But. Kind of, yeah. It's interesting that during this time, I guess this time being the whole 2000 stretch, they were very into environmental. This whole 1,000 years that we're only 15 years into. No, they were very much into environmental messages. Like the whole Simpsons movie is like very environmentally conscious. Are you talking about
Simpsons or pop culture?
I'm talking about Simpsons in specific. Yeah. I just feel like of the episodes I have seen, I feel like more environmentally conscious than they were in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe they needed to be because the Republicans really were doing, things that were deleterious to the
Old Man
environment.
Lisa had some recycling stuff going on.
That's true. That was 98, 99.
Recycling was a little bit more
97.
mainstream than the full climate change movement now. Climate change is fake. Dinosaurs.
Is that Groophic talking?
Coexisting with humans.
That sounds like something Groophic might think. Not going to hear from Groophic, I guess.
God planted the fossil bones there to fool us. He's testing us.
Thanks, bud. Your views are agreed with by millions.
Just add up all the ages of the old men in the Old Testament, and that's the age of the planet. Carbon dating? I don't want to date any carbon. Or I thought carbon was bad. Make up your mind, scientists. Lamestream media.
All those sheeple, am I right, Groove? I call you Groof for fun.
Jet fuel don't melt steel beams. So they get rid of the environment, and I think it leads to some, again, jokes that was very reminiscent of the classic Simpsons, specifically. So they're showing how now everything's getting more polluted.
Yeah.
And there's a smoke factory that produces
this
smoke.
is the one I liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next one is a daycare center with a smokestack.
Even more smoke.
Just producing black smoke. And that's one of those just great, they're not spelling it out. They're not like hammering it home. It's just the idea that a daycare would have a smoke.
Funny, ridiculous visual gag.
It's ridiculous. It's a visual gag. There's no backstory. You don't have to know where it's coming from. It's just one of those very simple things. It always like one of my favorite gags of all time is when the power goes out. How do you show the power goes out in Springfield? The fake vomit machine and the fake vomit factory stops making fake vomit.
Classic.
It's just like one of those simple things. It's just great.
Yeah, I agree. But there were 2 things, or 3 things even before that I thought that they were whatever. One was Nelson takes a snow owl and he's giving it a noogie and he's like, stop endangering yourself. Did nothing for me.
Yeah.
There's one where Mayor Quimby pulls the plug, like a stopper plug that you'd have in a bathtub on the wetlands and they just dry up.
Yeah.
And then one where Blinky is swimming and he's eaten by a 4-eyed fish, who's then eaten by a 6-eyed fish, who's then eaten by Homer.
Yeah.
And that all just felt like we need some time to
I
be
like
filled.
the Blinky thing, even though it's a joke that's
was
been done
fine.
in all sorts of places. Actually, I guess they stole it from Phantom Menace, which had the fish.
No, that wasn't the first time
Phantom Menace is the first time for everything.
You know
Team
what?
Jack,
You're
Attack of
probably
the
right.
Clones. I have 2 votes. You have none.
You so right, Jack. Jar Jar Binks is here.
I'm pretty sure Disney will sue us, even if your Jar Jar
I'm
sounds
Jim
like...
Jam Bonks. And I'm also Twisty the Tweak.
and Hemus.
And Hemus.
The mouse from the deleted scenes of this episode. Yeah, no, I like the Blinky joke, if anything, just because it was quick and
It was okay.
and it escalated.
I didn't love it.
And I think it was the first time they did a Blinky 2.0 at that time. I don't think there was other...
One scene I did love. It starts raining acid rain, and it cuts to groundskeeper Willie with his umbrella out in the rain, singing in the rain, doing a very, he's just singing in the rain, just exactly like the movie, and then the rain just burns him, and he's just screaming in the streets. I thought it was very funny.
It's a great gag to. It's a good gag to do with an acid rain scene. Having singing in the rain. It's a little on the nose.
It's a little on the nose, but Willie sells it.
Willie
and,
is the
Dan
perfect,
Castellaneta. He sells it with his Willie screams.
They could have literally have chosen any Springfielder for that moment. Because it has nothing to do with anything. It's a completely individual, contextless scene.
Yeah.
They could have picked anybody. They could have picked Sideshow Mel. They could have picked Krusty. But
Sideshow
Willie,
Mel could have been good too. But
there's lots that could have been good. But Sideshow,
I think Willie was probably the best choice.
But Willie was the best choice. It was just kismet. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And just him squirming in pain and it was great. In general, actually, I want to say that acid rain befalling Springfield is a great. Zany
plot
premise.
point.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where if you told me that happened in season 5, I'd totally buy it. It's just one of those over the top, sort of realistic. Obviously, acid rain doesn't quite work like that, but it's like somewhat grounded reality. But of course, in Springfield, it just you take it to the nines.
Makes total sense. I mean, Springfield has a nuclear power plant that's run by a corrupt businessman.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing it was missing was the classic Springfield breaks into mob chaos, but you can't because everybody's stuck indoors. But it just reminded me of like those classic, when the Springfield gets the flu, when they get the hurricane. Mm-hmm. It's just great to see that.
Like a disaster befalling Springfield, and we see like real quick the townspeople reacting.
Because lamest trope in screenwriting history, the Springfield is its own character.
Yeah,
but it is, and this is like just one of those great things to happen to Springfield. I
would have much rather had seen 3 or 4 quick beats. We see a little bit. We see like Skinner running around, like getting burned from the rain, but it wasn't really a joke. It was just showing, hey, it's acid rain. I would have rather have seen different vignettes, real quick montage of what's happening at Springfield than the montage we were just talking about Nelson.
Yeah.
And,
like more instead of doing dumb gags like draining the wetlands. More character based. I mean, I guess Nelson is a character based joke. He's giving the
but it's
but
it
it wasn't
just
very
like
good.
Instead of an endangered species, you can bully it now.
A good one.
All right.
I could see like Patty and Selma. Like the acid dripping through their ceiling and lighting their cigarettes for them.
Yeah.
Or like it burns one and then the other one uses uses the acid to light her cigarette.
That would have been good.
I don't know if acids can light cigarettes. I
don't know if Jeff Field can met steel beams.
Chemistry was one of my worst subjects. You were my lab partner.
I was your lab partner.
I set my tie on fire.
Yes, I do remember that.
That was Unfortunate. I still have that tie.
Did you reenact the Back to the Future clock tower scene in chemistry, or was that physics?
That was in physics.
That was in physics.
I don't know what the point of those little race cars
Right,
were.
yeah. Why would that be chemistry? I
But
don't
me
know.
and Jeff, completely recreated the clock tower.
clock tower model.
88 mph
Nice.
sequence.
Very nice. So anyway, it's acid rain in Springfield. There was a really gross line where Marge says, "We can't go outside until the squirrels stop melting," which I guess I liked, but man,
It's dark.
That's a dark, gross joke.
But it's like one of those, again.
At least we didn't see it.
Again, the classic Simpsons, the Paradiso era. They got away with some dark jokes, and they got away with it, and you nailed it. We didn't see it, whereas I'm pretty confident that if they had done it in the season 20 up, you would they would have fun with the animation, and you would see like little skeleton,
a little cute squirrel like melting in the rain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe do like a Raiders of the Lost Ark melting.
Yeah,
type.
right.
You know,
Actually, that could have been good.
Well,
but...
I'm saying it wouldn't necessarily be bad, but
it's a different kind of joke. Yeah. The family's watching Mo on Blind Date, and Blind Date was a show from this time period. And I like that Mo is like, yeah, I would see her again. And it just really quickly cuts to the woman he went on the date with. And she just goes, he smelled like puke. And then it cuts away, and that's it. I loved it. It was so quick. Great delivery.
I think Mo's was a little bit more dragged out, and like that's what made the quick cut to the other date.
Totally
funnier.
worked for me.
The pacing was on.
Something that didn't work for me is right after that, the acid rain melts the antenna on the Simpsons house.
Yeah.
And Homer is like, the TV's not working. He runs outside and he gets burned by the acid rain. He does that like 3 or 4 times, and it's just like, eh.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where maybe it would get funny if they did it enough times.
They've done it a handful of times.
I mean, they basically invented that joke with the rake gag.
It's a little different from the rake gag. It's more of the going back and forth gag where I can't think of any examples, but they've done it before. I would say they probably even did it in the Paradiso.
They probably did.
Hammer that metaphor home. So the TV goes out, so they decide to play a board game to pass the time, and they do a couple of Monopoly jokes. The first one is, so which one should we play? Should we play Monopoly? Should we play
Star Wars Monopoly?
Star Wars Monopoly? Gallipopoly?
I like to Gallipopoly.
Yeah, that's funny because the word, it's built in the word.
It's just fun to say.
So I guess I'll bring this up now. I thought this is again...
Wait, I just want to point out real quick that Edna Krabappoly was another one.
Well, that's why I'm bringing
up. Is that what you're bringing up? Okay.
So they do Edna Krabappoly.
Yeah.
And that's one of a few meta references. That is
a meta, yeah.
And this seemed to have a handful of them, and they were kind of proto-meta. It wasn't quite as deep. Well, some of them were deeper. But again, it's like you could see where season 13 is starting to go. It's got 12 years of history behind it, so now it's starting to eat its own tail. So you have Edna Krabappoly. Like, obviously, The Simpsons wouldn't have an Edna Krabappel Monopoly.
In universe.
Yeah,
it's a joke
you wouldn't see
for
that
the viewer.
In season 4, season 5.
Yeah.
It's a joke for the viewer. It's a joke for a Simpsons fan.
Well, they made so many jokes around this time about, like, oh my god, we've been on forever and we're running out of ideas. And then they went and did double the amount of episodes.
Exactly. Triple, if not.
They're
or
getting
quadruple if we're going from the spin-off showcase. But so you have that Edna Krabappel. Then when they go to jail at some point, we'll get up to that. And the newspaper headline says, Simpsons go to jail, even Maggie. And again, that's...
and I missed that, okay.
And that's something that's really, like, obviously in the world of Springfield, they wouldn't put even Maggie.
Well, they might. I mean, they wouldn't.
Would you see the words even Maggie on a newspaper in a season 6, season 7?
Probably not. You're right.
That's what I'm saying. Meta might not be the perfect word for it. But
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And then the big
more
one...
self-referential.
Right, exactly. It's for Simpsons fans.
Yeah.
And then the big one obviously is meta, where Marge says, we've had 280 adventures together. And
right, later on,
Lisa says, I guess this is the end of our series of
adventures?
So, we've talked about the meta stuff, and I won't go into it because we talked about it before in the show. But it's funny that season 13, it seems you can start seeing it happen already. It's just...
Yeah, and they've done it even before season 13. But it's interesting now as a curiosity because at the time, I'm sure they had no idea that they'd still be on in 2015. And yet...
I guess they had no idea. I forget. I don't know at what point. Definitely not season 13. Definitely a little later. But at one point I was like, yeah, they're just going to keep going. Like, everybody seemed surprised when they re-up. Like, they just re-upped for another 2 seasons. And they re-upped...
with an option for 2 more.
And when they re-upped a few years ago, everybody's like surprised. And it's like, why are you surprised? Like, I won't be surprised when they say, all right, that's it.
Yeah.
I guess I would be equally unsurprised if they said that's it, or we're going to do 2 more. And then, like you said, there's an option for another 2 after that.
Yep.
It's like, I really don't I don't know. I don't know why people are surprised at this point.
This has no basis in reality. It's just my complete conjecture. But I feel like they were just running along like, how much longer are we going to do this? And then it came the time when Simpsons was one of the only shows that wasn't in HD, and it was probably like not a big expense, but it was a big thing to be like, are we going to do it in HD now? Because it might only be a few seasons. And then when they did it in HD, they were like, well, I guess we're going to stay on for a bunch more seasons.
I guess.
I don't know. That's...
I mean,
I feel like that was probably the
Late
mark.
Night with Conan O'Brien made a very big deal about their HD set, and that lasted for about 8 months.
Well, that's true. But I feel like once they were like, we're doing HD.
Yeah, honestly, if not for some of the voice cast being in their 70s and late 60s, I wouldn't be surprised if they go to season 40 at this point. Like, because I could picture the show as a season 40. I can't picture what it would be like exactly.
Yeah.
But I can picture it being as different as season 26 is from season 12, but also being somewhat the same show.
Yeah,
like,
I can't even imagine.
Like, I guess when you're at season 13, it's hard to imagine.
Well, you're not necessarily thinking like, oh, we're going to become the longest running show ever.
It's just, I guess at one point it was a very long running show, and now it's just there.
Now
it's
the one to beat.
I mean,
I'm sure they're just going to keep going until it is the longest running show of all time.
There's PhDs candidates. There's grad students whose entire lives The Simpsons have been running.
Yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous. That's crazy.
26-year-olds are running around.
Yeah,
that's a thing. They were born when The Simpsons were born.
We were very young, but you can remember when there was a time where there wasn't Simpsons and when The Simpsons first started airing.
Actually, my very first memory is watching The Simpsons. That really has colored my life.
All right, this is a weird.
Oh man, so much for a short episode.
You
remember being born.
I remember the moment I became conscious, self-aware, I guess, and I don't know if
just like Skynet.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is all in my head, like I made it up. You know, like I'm misremembering it, but I've had this memory for a very long time. So it'd be weird for like a 9-10-year-old to remember something like this.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was, but I just remember like upstairs, and maybe it was a dream. I don't know, but I feel like it was like upstairs at the top of my stairs. I lived in a 2-story house, and like this like rush of air coming down the stairs, down both flights, through my old house. It was like very wide open. All the rooms were open. Through the house, and then me standing in my front window. Like I had a very square house, so I was standing like at the wall, just staring at the back of my house, and just like it was like I was like out of body experience, like rushing into my body.
The rush of air was like self-awareness hitting you.
Like my soul, my self-awareness. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and I just remember rushing into seeing my body, like standing there, like my 4-year-old, 5-year-old self standing there, rushing into it, and then suddenly seeing out of my own eyes and going like, whoa, what's going on?
That's nuts.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It's a very distinct memory, and maybe it's something I dreamed, and it's not like I don't know what it is. I don't think it's literally that because that's weird.
Yeah,
and I'm not like that kind of nutty person.
You're a different kind of nutty person.
But like I don't know what it was, but I've had this memory. I remember thinking about that moment I became self-aware. Yeah, or even when I couldn't even put it in those terms. Since I was very young, not quite that young, but so I don't know what it was, but it always, for me, I have some memories before that, but I think they might even just be from watching home movies, because I think the only memories I have from before then are the few things I have on VHS. So anyway, it is weird.
That is weird.
But yeah, The Simpsons have been around for a long time.
Yep, sure have. I thought it was really funny when Marge said, "How can an iron be a landlord?"
Yeah, well, the setup...
That was great.
So the setup is Monopoly's crazy enough already.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to... I thought, and maybe... So were we all supposed to think that she's talking about the rules of Monopoly, like how complicated the game is? And then the punchline is she's actually just talking about how silly the iron is?
Maybe. I just think it was Marge just being Marge.
Yeah, either way, it was very funny.
And there was also some history where Maggie has eaten in hotels before. There was the episode where Milhouse wasn't allowed to see Bart anymore, and Bart is playing Monopoly with Maggie, and she's just sucking on the hotels. And in this episode,
a meta reference?
She had them all in her mouth.
So there you go.
We just said that at the same time, and it was almost like Sideshow Mel was here.
So
there you go.
So there you go. So Homer pays. So Homer lands on Bart's hotel, has to pay up, and goes bankrupt. And I like they use like a time dissolve to show a lot of time has passed while Homer and then it cuts to Homer going, all right, and here's all the money I have left.
Yeah.
I like that they had to actually use a time dissolve because it takes fucking forever. When you go bankrupt in Monopoly and you have to count up all your assets, that's why I don't play the game. You like it a lot more.
I like Monopoly a lot. I love it.
I like playing like on my Super Nintendo or.
Yeah, Super Nintendo Monopoly was probably the best.
It's just, and well, the Xbox one I have is not bad either. But,
Yeah.
Well, you're right. Super Nintendo's better because it had the old Irish cop.
Don't you be coming back here now when you got out of jail? Loved
But
it.
I love just playing it just because they did the math for you. The
Yeah,
banking.
yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
wants to be banking,
Yep.
but God, it took forever. I love the idea that you had to use a time dissolve to show paying the bankrupt.
Good stuff. And eventually, they all start choking each other, or rather, Homer starts choking Bart, which is one of our most talked about subjects, so we won't even touch it. And then Marge and Lisa are both trying to pry them apart, and that leads Maggie to call the police. But what I loved about it is when everyone's sort of getting into the fight, there's the classic Simpsons fighting music cue.
Yeah.
The da-da, da-da,
Which we really want to know the origin to.
it has to be Three Men in a Comic. Because that is season 2.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's-
I just mean, like, where does it come from? Like, what is it
like
parodying?
why?
Yeah, is it,
Maybe it's
is
Treasure
it-
with Sierra Madre, because that's what that scene was parodying, right?
No, that's definitely more like 80s, 90s action music.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's parodying just the genre or if it is parodying a specific movie. I don't know.
I don't know, but whatever it is, love that.
Yeah.
And I had a chuckle at the phone having, Maggie goes to the phone and she sees the fire button for the fire department, the medical cross for the hospital, and then there's a picture of Homer choking Bart.
It's again
She
one of
presses
the
that one.
meta is the wrong word, but that seems to be one of those where,
Self-referential, I think,
yeah.
might be what we're getting at. So the police come, Chief Wiggum comes. He says, how do those Parker brothers sleep at night? Because Monopoly tore apart another family.
There's an awful line where they get sprayed with taffy to freeze them up, and Homer chews on the taffy and says, "Police brutality." More like police chewality.
Chutality. Yeah.
Come on.
Especially now with what's been happening with the police.
I know we complain about bad puns and the puns they make, but it's just like that's not even a pun. It just happens to be a word where you just like
kind
the
of
first
rhymes.
syllable kind of like duality is not a word. It just there's
Yeah,
no
no,
point.
it was-
It's so stupid. You could do that with literally anything.
The police also send in a negotiation bot, which is like a female robot, like a bomb disposal bot, but they're to negotiate, and then it turns into like a
Which is
shrieking
weird
siren.
that it's a woman. And I don't want to sound sexist, but typically when I picture the hostage negotiator, like the standard pop culture, in the movies negotiator, it's usually like a tough guy.
Kevin Spacey.
Or Kevin Spacey. It's almost weird. I wonder if, like you said, they made it a woman because it's a more peaceful version of a bomb disposal, and it is sexist. And
I think it's probably just so they can do that kind of sexist joke afterwards, where
right.
Chief Wiggum's like trying to arrest Homer, and then the robot comes in and is like, "This is my collar," and he just switches her off and says, too bad real women don't have these off switches. Which I actually thought, I didn't remember, I have seen this episode before, but I don't remember anything about it. When Chief Wiggum said that, I really expected Lou or Eddie to be like, "Come on, Chief."
Yeah.
And be like, don't say that.
Yeah, I didn't like the setup at all, but I loved Homer's punchline.
Homer's punchline was...
Oh, not Homer's punchline. I guess Wiggum's punchline.
Well, yeah,
too.
Homer tries to join in, and then what does Wiggum actually say?
He says, that counts as your phone call.
Yeah, right. That was it.
I love that.
Good.
That's a great line. And again, that's a line I could easily see in the earlier
Well,
seasons.
you could have even had Homer say, like, "Oh, come on, Chief, that's kind of sexist." And then he's like, "That counts as your phone call."
Yeah, exactly.
That
Yeah.
would have worked better.
But just that counts as your phone. That's just a great corrupt Wiggum joke.
Yeah.
Look, Gabriel, we're learning to work together. That's great, but so are the wolves and cougars.
So we start Act 2, and the Simpsons are in jail, and Lisa is saying that with this on her record, she's not going to make it into an Ivy League school, and Bart just starts going, "You're going to Stanford," and I liked Homer joined in, and they were chanting. Whenever there's chanting on The Simpsons, I get really into it.
And I love when they take pot shots at like elite colleges for not being quite Ivy League.
Yeah,
Or
"You're going to Stanford." So they're in jail, and Delroy Lindo comes in as Gabriel, who is a social worker who's coming to help them. And he's dressed all in white, and he comes in with this angelic kind of music, which he says is his ringtone. His pager, yeah, that's dated.
Which, did pagers make music back then?
I'm
guessing it was the most advanced pagers we're getting. But
yeah. But that started a whole runner where Homer assumed he was an angel, like in The Preacher's Wife, which was
Is that
fine.
what that was?
Yeah, I mean, he keeps going back to it, and they make the joke later after he helps them where he says, I can finally get my wings. And he's like, I knew you were an angel. He's like, no, I meant my wings CD. And then he listens to Band on the Run.
I didn't hate the joke, but it was kind of, it was a huge stretch. It was a huge stretch.
Yes, rather, that joke was a huge stretch. Then it kind of goes on so Gabriel gets them out of jail, and it goes on a little, not really a montage, but a couple of quick scenes where he's with every family member. He's with Lisa, and she's kind of like, oh, I do my own thing. And I like that Bart runs in, and he goes, I got sprayed by a skunk. Let me rub it on your sweaters. Yeah, I just thought that was funny, Bart.
Well, Lisa's reaction is very dark. She just grabs a stress ball and squeezes and says, 10 more years, 10 more years. Very dark, just showing how miserable she is at home. It was a little real.
It was
a little too real. It's funny you said that it's not a montage. It really is just a series of scenes, which is what really makes the structure stand out. He gets one scene with
every family member.
But it's what makes the structure stand out as different, as not quite a 3-act structure. Because if it was more of just one of those tangent act ones that lead into the plot, you wouldn't have had those scenes. It would have pretty much, all right, now we got arrested. Now we have a social worker. Now the social worker is taking us to the forest. But because you have like full scenes, or short scenes, but full scenes, like one with each character, that really does make it its own individual self-contained story.
Yeah, I mean, there's scenes that are kind of giving weight to why does the family need to stay together. Like, each of them has their own thing. Like, Lisa's the smart one who doesn't feel appreciated, and the scene with him and Bart is kind of using the fact that he's a social worker to, like, gain popularity and be like, look how crazy I am. And that's kind of a classic Bart thing.
Homer gets drunk in the bar.
Right, that's Homer's thing. He's drunk.
Yeah. But it's
very, Marge is into cooking.
Yeah. It's very interesting creative choice to have structurally done it this way, as opposed to just doing the standard, here's a really weird inciting incident that will go off and lead to into the actual plot.
Right.
They basically still do that. They just really drag it out for pretty much half the episode, like we said. It's just it was very interesting. I'm surprised they made that choice. I'm glad. I wish they would play around like that more.
Yeah, I mean, this really was a weirdly structured episode, but it was A to B to C. It wasn't like crazy make them up all over the place. Just a couple of quick lines that I liked. Marge just talking about how she channels her energy into her cooking, and she's like, and then at 6 o'clock we go live. I like that.
Marge's delivery was great. The analogy to live TV was perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
And I also liked, and people might not think we would like this because we've made reference to jokes that are similar that we don't like. When Homer is drunk at Moe's and he's like, there's 5 of us. There's Marge, there's Bart, there's Girl Bart. I just love that he called Lisa Girl Bart.
It didn't do anything for me.
It made me laugh.
I didn't hate it. It didn't do anything for me.
And then he was like the baby because he didn't remember Maggie, which, sometimes that doesn't work.
It was okay here because he also didn't remember himself or Lisa.
Exactly.
The joke
he was
that
also
he was just
ridiculously
very drunk.
Yeah. So Gabriel takes them into the forest, and he says you have to work together to get the food, which is up in the tree. And I love that he tells Homer that there's beer in there also, and then just instantly Homer is in the car ready to smash into the tree.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. And of course he hits the tree, and it falls into the gorge and brings Gabriel with it.
Yeah.
And then he's hanging over wolves and cougars, which led to a lot of very, very funny stuff.
So the Simpsons huddle there. So now they're actually working together as a team. But Homer wants to whisper.
Yeah, Homer is like, oh, you need to talk like this. And then Lisa does it, and Homer just goes, what?
Like he literally says, you have to whisper like this because this is what we do in a huddle. Yeah. And when she whispered, he just, the timing was perfect.
But then even funnier than that was then Gabriel calls out and he says, the wolves and the cougars are working together. And it cuts down to the wolves and the cougars.
They say, don't worry, Gabriel, we're working together. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, but so are the wolves and cougars.
And you see them also in a huddle, and then they look up and they scatter.
they all move. They move their huddle over 5 feet out of earshot. And they're just animal animation. They are adorable.
Yeah, it was very funny.
The fact that they're all huddled onto 2 feet. It was beautiful. It was so funny. Every wolf and cougar joke in this sequence is just silly. It's too silly.
They're really, like climbing up on each other's back like cheerleaders. They make a little seesaw thing.
They made the seesaw. It's reality bending, but it's fucking hysterical. It's just really it's zany. It's more zany.
This is a very zany episode.
And we've been talking about how this reminds us of the classic era and how it reminds us of the post-classic era. I hate to give the impression that it's only funny if it reminds us of season 7. It's like it has to fit into a season 7 joke context for us to like it, and it doesn't because what was the joke we just said before that? It was
Homer smashing
Oh,
into the
the
tree?
Marge. Yeah.
Oh.
So the Marge joke, and then we go live. I don't
Yeah.
quite like that Marge, that domestic bliss Marge, that more exaggerated. I think that came about a little bit later. That you really wouldn't find that in the classic era, but it's still we
Right.
find it very funny.
Yeah.
And like so they can do very funny jokes that aren't classic era type humor, but still fit the show. And then they can do very funny jokes that just don't belong at all. You know, sometimes we call them Family Guy jokes, or
Yep.
for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
So I just don't want people to get the impression that we only think it's funny if it fit in the classic era. Because look, this Wolves Cougars sequence, none of this would fit in season 7, season 6, definitely not in the early seasons.
Yeah.
But it still made me. It was still my favorite part of the episode.
Right.
It was just hilarious.
I agree. My favorite also, they eventually drop the food and the beer, and I love Gabriel's like, the beer will slow their motor skills, and then they eat the beer and they start drinking it
Yeah.
up, and then immediately they're just rolling in
Rolling
beer.
in the beer, and I was like, yeah, they're all right.
It was very funny, good animation.
And again, and we say sometimes it doesn't belong. Like this could be in a Family Guy episode, but I think it's funnier in a Simpsons episode. It just worked. It fits the world that they've built here.
Family Guy would have had like talking wolves, and it would have cut to like famous wolves.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
Also in that scene, Lisa is wearing Bart's lucky red cap, and Bart is wearing a purple cap I've never seen before.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Something to note.
Something to note.
Weird. Like
Maybe Bart got a purple hat in season 12, and we haven't seen that one yet.
that was actually a season 12 episode.
All
Bart
right.
gets a purple hat. That
Just like Bart gets an F.
They really ran out of ideas.
That's sure. And then they went for 14 more seasons.
But yeah, so they save Gabriel, and now they're all happy. They've reunited as a family, and they're in the car singing "We Are Family."
right.
And Homer sings,
Wolves and cougars ate our roast beef.
and it was just really funny.
That was very, very funny. I liked
Again,
that a lot.
it was just silly, and they were having fun with the show. It wasn't too mean spirited or cynical. It was just funny.
No, it was the family had overcome something. They felt very strong together, and that was just a funny joke.
Yeah. And then that leads into the big reveal that the
Right.
Vegas wives are back, and I
They
love.
pull into the house, and the Vegas
And
wives are
it's
there.
and I forgot about this plot completely. I didn't see it until the wives showed up on screen. I had no idea that was this episode.
So I knew it was this episode, and since it hadn't come in, I was like, "Are we watching the right episode?"
And I love that.
Then I remember.
And I love that they spent this time, not just an act, but really like act and a half, 2 acts, whatever it was.
yeah, it's pretty much all of Act 3, and the end of this.
They really spend a lot of time setting up this family dynamic, and they really get the family to this great place.
Yeah, they
And
bring
then
them up. They bring them way high, and down
so
low.
that the Vegas wives are full. And we've complained about this on other episodes we covered, where they just have this plot and it has no stakes, and it just kind of starts, and like that's the reason, because you don't have that emotional undercurrent that propels the story.
Yep.
So like now you have this family's finally got their shit together, and now it's threatened by by this one woman, by Amber, the Homer's wife.
Yeah.
And that's great because I hate to do hypothetical situations.
Call 'em out.
But I would not be surprised if in a season 24, season 23 episode, season 19, whatever we cover, where if they could have the same story, it would kind of just happen. Just kind of be like, all right, you could cut out the entire Gabriel scene, and it would just start with just the wives showing up. It's just like one, there's a funny TV gag, and then there's a ring at the doorbell. Homer's wife is here.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't even bother giving you that emotion. Like we talked about Codependence Day. This is not the best example. That's why I didn't want to use it, but I can't think of any others. Where Homer switches Marge and blames her for his DUI, and we said there's no reason. If they had at least given him a reason to why he really needed to have his license or couldn't afford a DUI,
would have been better. Yeah.
It would have, given the story some oomph. Again, that's not quite what I'm talking about here with the emotional undercurrent. But
Yeah.
so I was just really happy with the way they pulled off this structure and this twist.
I agree. The only comment that I would have that kind of was a drawback for me, they rush in the cocktail waitress stuff, pretty much all in the last act. And there's really no moment of redemption where Marge should take Homer back. Like, she's justifiably very upset at the beginning of the third act.
That's the problem. As much as I like them playing with the structure, the actual story, if there's one story to this, you would call it the wives story, the Vegas wives.
Right.
It really suffers from both the Flanders and Homer story. Both suffer from lack of.
Yeah, the
beats.
Flanders story especially, because what we do get, I think, is hysterical with the Flanders stuff.
Yeah.
You get Rod and Todd being super weird and just very funny. What was they say? They're like, smokers are jokers. Yeah. And there's a part where Ned brings her breakfast in bed because his actual wife is now passed on at this episode. So he's like, okay, I'm going to treat her like my real wife. He brings her breakfast in bed with coffee, and she sips it, and she says, can we Irish this up a little bit? And he goes, oh, we don't use the I word in this house.
Yeah, he also says,
I know that Irish is a curse in the Flanders
house. And he says she's a little peppermint.
Yes.
Like, that's a perfect Flandersism.
Yes.
Again, that reminded me of classic era Flanders, whereas a very different character from post-classic Flanders.
And it's really just 2 quick scenes with Flanders, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I guess we're jumping way ahead here.
We're jumping around a little bit.
So
much like House of Pain.
I think that B plot needed one more beat. I think it's funny. Usually there's an extra beat. This needed another scene. This needed another beat. And not the same beat over. The story needed a little bit more progression before it led to the point where she just runs out on them. Yeah. I mean, I could see her running out. The logic was there. She was sick of being with the Flanders. They were too clean cut.
It was a Doug Funny plot. But it needed more beats.
But it did. It needed some substance. It needed some meat. So I want to talk about So this is really a rare episode in that it's kind of a direct sequel to a previous episode. They don't quite often do this.
They don't.
Where, like, if you're a newcomer, if you've never seen the original Vegas episode where Flanders and Homer go to Vegas and accidentally get married, you could still pretty much enjoy this episode. Again, especially since the wives plot is really just a few scenes.
It's very much at the end, yeah.
But you could still enjoy it. But you might be a little confused because they really just you get the impression that the writers assume you know who these two women are the second they're
well, they do explain like, oh, you got married in Vegas, and they show a video of them actually marrying.
Like I said, if you're new to this, they've done their job.
They tell you just what you need to know.
They know what you need to know, but I get the impression that they expect most of us do know already. Like just the big reveal really wouldn't have been as strong.
I mean, The Simpsons is known for its hardcore loser fans who make podcasts about it. And,
think about if you didn't know. Think about if they never did that first episode, and these were two wives that they got married off screen in a non-existent episode,
which is probably how they do it nowadays.
Wouldn't you be a little bit more like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Even with the backstory.
Yeah, I would.
So I thought that was interesting that they did that. But I liked it. I'm surprised they don't do it more often. I mean, they do it sometimes. They brought back Uncle Herb for a sequel, and
I'm surprised they never brought him back again. Do you think they did?
I think they did.
I would love to watch that episode then.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point out something, kind of backgroundy stuff for this episode. So this episode is kind of a sequel to season 10's Viva Ned Flanders, which was showrun by Mike Scully, and that episode was actually written by David M. Stern. But this episode, Brawl in the Family, is actually the first episode where Al Jean was the sole showrunner, which has continued to this day. So this was the start of
first of a 13
Al Jean's empire.
14 season run, yeah.
And apparently, according to Wikipedia, which is never wrong, it was Al Jean's idea to do this plot because he felt that episode kind of ended on a weird note.
Oh, jeez.
And that they wanted to kind of
really marking his territory there. I guess it is weird that like for his first episode he would do a sequel to an episode that was done by a showrunner. He literally had nothing to do with the show at the time.
Right.
I guess that makes sense if he wanted to fix what went wrong.
Fix one problem, I guess.
He's like doing his quantum leap of old Simpsons episodes, writing what went from what.
He's writing his own fan fiction for.
No, I meant writing, right? Like writing
yes.
what once went wrong.
Right.
The theme to Quantum Leap.
Yes. Yeah. It makes sense to me because I actually did think at the end of the Flanders season 10 episode that Homer did tell Marge, and it is kind of fucked up that he never did.
It just ends with them leaving Vegas. I remember because a lot of nerdy Simpsons fans, like you just said, point out that they're leaving west, which means that Springfield is west of Vegas, which really narrows down where it could be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. This is a problem that I don't think Homer could recover from. You know, like Secrets of a Successful Marriage, where he's like blabbing secrets about Marge. That was bad, but I could see Marge forgiving him. Here, just cutting to the end, like there's really no reason for her to take Homer back. He has a doghouse on his head, and she feels bad for him, and then suddenly takes him in.
There's no scene that shows her change her mind. She just kind of comes out and changes her mind.
Yeah.
But I would say there's no reason in that. Yes, it's a shitty thing that he did, but he didn't cheat on her. He didn't really. He got blackout. He got blackout drunk and did something he shouldn't have.
That's one way of putting it.
It's like
secret wife from another state is another way.
If you or I did like this
No,
is just,
I know.
This is just one of many Homer's, like, trash to school, do all these things drunk.
I mean, it's a cartoon show for,
Just Homer. It's grounded in Homer Simpson's character. When he gets drunk, he does ridiculous things, and I can see him. And they really go out of their way to say he didn't even kiss her. There's nothing romantic. He just he married her. That's it. It's a piece of paper.
Right. For me, it's just that's the one beat that doesn't work. Like, why would Marge take Homer back? That's the part of the story that's underserved in an otherwise pretty strong plot structure.
It's fun. I don't know. It's funny that Al Jean says, "Oh, we have to fix this episode. It ended funny." It's like, did he watch any of the seasons 9, 10, 11, or 12? There's plenty of episodes he could have done a sequel to try to fix. And what's ironic?
There's good episodes in that run.
There's some, but I'm not saying that. But that's kind of ridiculous to say that the Vegas one was the only bad one.
I don't know. I buy it.
I think that might be a stronger episode than this one in that I think the ending works. The point is that Vegas rejects Homer and Flanders, which is fun.
Yeah, I like that.
And they don't have to worry about Marge forgiving him because she never knows. Whereas, like you said, this one, it kind of both Homer and Flanders' plot kind of leave a lot left to be desired. So one thing that really I thought weakened the episode too were the wives themselves, since they're so important. I thought their personality, they needed a little bit more personality. They didn't quite stand out as.
Well, they didn't really have personalities. They were just awful.
Yeah, and like if you're gonna
just trash.
If you're gonna be so important to the story, it would have been nice. They were done by cast regulars. I'm not sure which ones.
It's Pamela Hayden and Tress MacNeille.
All right, so they were done by those two, which maybe would have made more sense in the first episode, but I kind of wish they were done by guest stars here just to help give them a little more personality, because they do kind of sound like a lot of the Simpsons characters that are done by Tress and Pamela.
Yeah.
I'm on a first name basis.
Oh, of course you are.
So I just really, if they had just given a few, some beats here, so some kind of characterizations, just a little something here, something there, besides just the general stereotypes of being floozies and disgusting.
Yeah.
I think it would have gone a long way to just making them feel like more real characters. It would have made the story more grounded. And just, if you're making the story about Homer and Flanders' secret wives, then make the secret wives characters
more interesting. Yeah, I agree with you.
I was bummed about that.
Yeah.
But the fact that it is a sequel, I think it's great that that the one episode took place before Maude died and the other one takes place after.
Yeah.
That really benefited, because if Maude didn't die, you basically would have had the Flanders story would have been the exact same story as Homer's story.
Yeah.
And so I'm just glad Maude died, I guess is what I'm saying. Because it is great that the Flanders B plot is completely different from the A plot in that they're happy to have her and they want to be a family.
Yeah.
And she can't, and she's too peppermint. She can't put up with them.
Even though voice of Maude Flanders, Maggie Roswell, is our friend on Twitter.
Yeah, just saying.
Just saying. No big deal.
But
she doesn't listen to the show. I'm almost positive. She has no idea what we are. She just knows it has to do with The Simpsons.
No, she listens to every
being
episode.
Very nice.
She's going to make us a cat.
Yes.
Along with Melissa Joan Hart, another Twitter follower.
Yeah. Melissa Joan Hart, also a follower.
So it's great. Like, that was one advantage they got from actually having Maude dead.
Yeah, I agree.
I liked it. When when the writers do go out of their way to say that Homer didn't actually do anything with her, he says, I didn't even make Whoopi with her. I didn't even make mouth Whoopi. That rang a little false.
I don't even remember that line. I don't like that at all.
The word Whoopi is weird, and why is he using the word Whoopi?
Mouth Whoopi. I don't like that at all.
They have a euphemism for sex. It's snuggling. So it would have been, if they don't want to actually say made love or sex, I could see Homer saying, we never even snuggled. We never even mouth snuggled.
Yeah.
But why? It was just weird why he's never said whoopee before. He's never said it since. The only time you should hear the word whoopee in The Simpsons is when it's related to naked pictures of Whoopi Goldberg being thrown down bottomless pits.
Oh, boy.
Did you notice he was literally in the doghouse? At one point, I thought they were going to make a joke about that. I don't even know if it was intentional. I don't even know if that's what they were making.
I don't think they even were.
He got kicked out of the house. He didn't want to stay in the treehouse with his wife.
Because the other wife was there,
so he tries to sleep in the doghouse, and he gets his head stuck in it. So he's literally in the doghouse.
I didn't like any of that. He's like walking back and forth with the doghouse on his head, trying to be cool because Marge is watching. That
and it went on way too long.
The only thing I did like is it cuts to the next morning. It's sunrise, and Homer's waking up with his head on a rock, and the smashed doghouse is he's like behind him and they don't call attention to it. I liked that.
I like the idea of him literally being the doghouse, but I don't know if it was intentional.
Yeah.
I might be reading too much into it.
You may be.
But so that scene is where Marge comes out and says, "We need to talk." And they go in, and then they fight later on, but you realize it's part of the con.
Right.
So that means she pretty much goes, "Okay, we need to talk. Come in the house." And either then they work it out, or she's already forgiven him.
It seemed like she had already forgiven him.
Now they're just coming up with the con.
And she was like, "This is the plan. We're going to pretend to fight to kind of trick your other wife."
Like that. This is really where they needed a scene where why is Marge?
I agree.
Somebody should have brought.
That's my point.
Yeah, somebody should have brought up like this is what Homer does. He didn't mean it.
Or like even Marge is like, "Look, Homer, I'm like furious that you did this, but for the sake of our family, we got to get rid of this woman. So let's work together and do this." And maybe even the working together is what makes Marge be like, "All right, I still love him."
Or if Marge said, "You know what? I guess we're even now. I've been cheating on you
with a shock
with
for
shock.
13 seasons."
Yeah. You thought I came back to you, but you had sloppy seconds.
Oh, and I was in Playboy.
I had Jock's in my
Oh no,
my blue-haired vagina.
We After Dark too.
So in that line, so in that scene, she says, "Homer, we need to talk," and he goes, "Sure. What do you want to talk about? Sports?"
Yeah, bigamy. She's like, "Bigamy."
He goes,
not a sports fan, huh?
I wasn't crazy about the not a sports fan, but I like that sports. Yeah. Bigamy.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. So they do this con where they pretend they're fighting in front of Amber, so she thinks that Homer's really leaving them for good.
Right.
Marge calls her Britney Beers. Again, this is one of those. Like I said, if some of this show felt like Paradiso, that felt like Inferno. That felt like post-classic hell.
Yeah.
Just a lame pun for like just why?
It's just unnecessary.
Yes, Spears rhymes with Spears. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Here's your thousands of dollars.
So the plan is basically they're going to take Amber out and get her very, very drunk. So Homer takes her to Moe's. I like that Lenny had a funny line. He was just like, "Wow, her lips look like night crawlers." I thought that was funny.
This is very important before we move on.
Yeah.
So at the house scene, right before the Moe's scene, I could tell it was a con, but I think I was remembering it from the last time I seen it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you're watching for the first time, maybe you don't know. You can't tell. Maybe you can because it's just, it's not the most exciting twist in the world.
Well, they give it away when the kids all do the thumbs up.
No, I'm talking about before that.
Before that, okay.
So, but then they do give the thumbs up, and I'm really glad they do there. They could have done like they did in that episode with Ed Norton. Where they play a long con and you don't realize, or the one we covered, the frying pan.
The frying game.
The frying game. Fuck, I did it
in that episode. It was 20 episodes ago. You still haven't learned.
So, but yeah, where you find out it was all fake at the very end.
Right. I prefer this.
I'm really glad that they did it because now it involves Marge and the kids in the story. It sucks again that it's not, it's just beats. They're just going through the motions. There's no room for actual story or scenes. But it's great that you are following them along with that and then the most scene and then I guess the one scene after that.
Yeah.
Because if you do play the twist at the very end, yes, you get more of a big reveal where it's like, no, we were in on it all along. We never broke up.
It's more Shyamalan.
Yeah, you get that, but you lose. You don't really like Marge is now not really part of the story because it's not you're not following her emotions. They're not emotionally connected to the story because they're lying and you don't even realize it. It's why everybody hates it was all a dream ending because if you find out it was all a dream, that means nothing meant anything.
All the stakes are
it was just not there.
Gone.
So I was really happy that they revealed it early. I thought that was a smart move. And in a lot of these episodes, I'm genuinely surprised to see smart moves. So I was very excited. I was very happy to see them. It was a very savvy move to have them right when they did do the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Again, it would have been better if it would have paid off more if there was more meat to that part of the story. Maybe as much as we love the Full Metal Jacket structure, maybe Gabriel could have took a little less screen time so that they could focus more on the wives.
You gotta get that Roy Del Lindo in there though. So Amber, the Vegas wife, wakes up in the treehouse. She's hungover. She downs a bunch of aspirin and she follows that up with a bunch of RU-46.
Yeah, the Plan B.
Which that's the Plan B pill. That's
dark. Yeah,
that's a dark joke.
Especially because there's like a whole bottle of them.
Yeah, she takes at least 4. That's pretty dark. But I liked what the reveal, like what the plan was. She wakes up next to Grandpa. And I love that that's the plan. Just get her drunk and marry to Grandpa. It's, who's available that will do this for us.
Again, that's what
Grandpa's a good choice,
I thought it was a little lackluster lackluster. Then they cut to the home video of them actually getting married to show that she under
Right.
again. Like if you're doing this long con and this, I just kind of wish it was a little bit more cleverly written. Again, it just needed more. It needed more meat. It needed a couple more scenes. Just to really,
No, I agree. It's
like
a little bit rushed.
Like watching the Ocean's 11 or the Book Job, where if they just cut all the scenes out in the middle, it's like, all right, we got a plan, and we robbed the book.
Yeah, right.
And we robbed the bank.
Yeah.
It just. And
the first two acts were about them fighting over a book.
Yeah, exactly. the fun is watching them hash out the plan. And this was it makes sense if you in real life this is what you would probably do. It's the simplest way out of it. Get her drunk and marry her
off.
Where it's not like you don't have this Rube Goldberg plot, but that's not really fun.
You don't even have a Bill Goldberg plot where he spears somebody. That's a wrestling reference.
But it's not fun to watch that way. So
Bill Goldberg was pretty fun to watch. He had a good run, Jack.
So the grandpa reveal was fine. I just it was just like, yeah, okay, oh good, they got rid of her.
Yeah.
It's just like what's the point of bringing her in and then kicking her out 2 scenes later?
I just like Grandpa. It's like when he makes an appearance.
No, I just structurally it just kind of is like there was no weight to them leaving because they just got there.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm really all over the place. I said I really liked the structure. Now, as we're talking about it, I realized I didn't.
Well, it's a good overall structure, but then this part of the episode does feel a little compressed. You feel like the rush in the third act.
There are plenty of episodes we could say this for, but I bet you this would make a decent movie plot. You could stretch this out to 80, 90 minutes.
You probably could have. The two Vegas wives decide to leave, and I thought this was a very sad joke, actually, where Grandpa just goes, "Oh, I lost another wife." Yeah. I thought that was sad, and then
I thought there was even sadder.
And then it got even darker, where he's like, he turns to Homer, and he's like, first he says...
senility will make him forget that he was ever married, and he'll feel better.
And then he turns to Homer, and he's like, I have a son around your age. And then
it ends with the family laughing at Grandpa's
senility.
It's like, that was...
Nothing funnier than...
Like I'm not
losing your mind before death.
Yeah, I'm not a prude. I can laugh at dark jokes, like the swirl melting joke.
Yeah,
but that's no fun. I don't know. Just them, it was them laughing at it. Really.
For more about that, listen to our episode where we watched the one where Grandpa marries Selma. I think it was 16.
And again, what I actually liked about the story and the emotional storytelling in this episode, and I didn't even realize it until they actually explicitly spell it out, which I don't know what that says about me. But Marge says they work together as a family. That's what that was what they were building to. Was
exactly
the plot to get her out of the house and get rid of her was in general the same beat as them rescuing Gabriel from the cougars and the wolves.
But it was slightly different because that was like a physical kind of danger, and this was like an emotional kind of danger. Yeah, so I liked that it kind of elevated.
It's great storytelling. Yeah, you start with an A, and then you have this higher stakes B.
Right.
It was really well.
Gabriel was the mini boss, and this was Ganondorf.
And so it was great that technically Ganondorf is the mini boss, and full Ganon is the boss.
I have literally only played one Zelda game, and it was the very first one.
But no, it's just really like that's a very well. Like big picture, very smart storytelling structure that you almost never see in the new episodes. No, and sometimes don't even see in the classic era. It was really well done.
And interestingly enough, this episode at the time was not very well regarded because people thought like, oh, they've done this plot before of like the family breaking up and having to get back together. Whereas now, I think this episode is a bit of a fresh of breath air.
Yeah. But it reminds me of the Bart Carney episode too, where they hatch a plot to get the Carneys out of their house.
Yeah.
But again, it really suffers from not having any meat to it. Like, if the whole point is, oh, wow, they're finally working together to not just save some guy from wolves, but to actually save their family and get rid of this intruder, then you should see it actually hashed out, not just her getting drunk and then cutting to Grandpa. Yep. Like, there should have been a little bit more intricacies to it. And again, it should have been more of a Rube Goldberg. You want to see, like a Mousetrap.
Could have been a 2-part episode.
You want to see the ball land on the seesaw and the man go into the bucket and the ball roll. You don't want to just see you hit the button and the cage fall in the mess.
Yeah, it actually could have been a good 2-part episode. Like, if you stretch out the Gabriel stuff, and that's one episode, it ends with they get home and they meet the wives, and Gabriel's like, bye. Yeah. And then the next episode is all about getting rid of the wives.
If this was like The Office, where they were doing 2-part episodes. Yeah, if they were doing 2-part episodes all the time. If you're only doing one 2-part episode ever, besides Mr. Burns, probably not the most epic story to choose, but...
Yeah. Unless Al Jean wants to come in on a big 2-parter.
Think you can Irish up this coffee for me?
Oops, watch the swears, honey bear. We don't use the I word in this house.
But anyway, I think that's it for Brawl in the Family. So we're going to rank it in our hippo scale. The humor, the integrity, the production, and the originality of the episode. Humor and integrity way more. Listen to old episodes where we talk more about that system, because we're going to put 2 minutes on the clock.
Beep, boop, beep.
And we're going to do it. Jack, the humor of the episode, we're doing this on a 0-5 scale. What do you got?
I'm thinking 2.5.
I'm asking you, and now I'm answering.
Yeah, no, ask me. I don't know. You tell me.
Personally, I laughed a good amount during this episode, so I'm thinking 3, possibly 3.5, but probably closer to 3, because I think it got less funny as it went on.
I can't think of anything I was really laughing at besides.
Well, there was the whole wolves and the cougars thing.
The wolves and cougars thing.
The first act had a number of
some of the acid rain jokes.
Yeah, Willie.
Willie, yeah.
He smelled like puke, the blind date thing. I like that.
I'll go 3.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 3. We've got the integrity of the episode. Pretty good episode on integrity, I think.
Everybody's pretty much true to character. Some great Marge moments. A little dark, but again, great with the way they all react to the social worker made sense, where Homer becomes a self-loathing drunk, Bart with showing it off to his friends, Lisa with the depression.
And even the way they treated the wives was very real.
Yeah.
The only beat that really didn't hold up for me was Marge taking Homer back.
You could even argue that Flanders being so happy to have a wife was coming out of his
It was. That was good. I liked it. I'm gonna probably go pretty high on the integrity.
Yeah, I'll go 3.5.
I think I'm gonna go 4 actually. Is that crazy? I'm gonna do it, and maybe I'll change my mind. The production of the episode. One thing we really liked. The Cougars and the Wolves, they were very well animated. They were funny.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good musical stings, like we talked about. The Republicans had their sting. The fighting music had their sting.
The lighting in the Republican scene was very good, too.
It was very good. I did notice. They used, like, the dark color palette, where it's, like, that neon, like, purple and, like, a dark blue. Always good stuff. I'm going to probably go pretty high on that. Maybe, like, a 3.5, I think.
3.
I think I like this episode more than you did. And finally, the originality of the episode. It's not the most original episode in the world. We'll give it that. We've seen The Simpsons overcome obstacles before.
And Homer and Marge have almost divorced several times.
Several times, and several times since.
And several times soon.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The structure, it's funny, I was saying how much I love the structure, but in the end, it really kind of sucked away from the actual main story, if there was one.
If that even was the main story.
Yeah, again, it almost would have worked better as the 3 vignettes of the Simpsons, how they're a shitty family.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the core premise of the series. How they're a dysfunctional family. Maybe not shitty.
I'm going to say 2.
I'm going to also say 2. I think that's
low
enough.
You could maybe push me to 2.5, but because again, the structure was, some of it worked, some of it didn't.
Yeah.
I'll go 2.
Yeah, 2 seems about right. Okay, we crunched our numbers, and Brawl in the Family is ranking as a slightly better episode than The Book Job, and a slightly worse episode than Pokemon. That's pretty high up on the list. It's now our number 6 best episode that we've watched. So that's pretty high. This episode doesn't have a great reputation. I think a lot of that is stemming from people who watched it live.
Yeah,
I think this episode has aged well because there's a lot better than episodes that come after it.
Said the same thing about Simpsons Safari, which this was a better episode than.
Yeah, much better episode.
But Simpsons Safari was like the most hated episode, and since then it really seems it's like how the first Friday the 13th
Part
movie
1
just seems so tame.
Pretty tame by today's standards. So that is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. If you have a worst episode that you would like to suggest as a worst episode ever, you can do that on our website, which is wepodcast.com. Just go to the suggested episode link. We got a handy dandy form that you can fill out to do that. And while you're there, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, subscribe to the show, read the show notes. There's a bunch of stuff to do. It's a very fun website. And if you're in the Brooklyn area, you can come to Woo Classic Simpsons Trivia, first Thursday of the month at Berry Park. Google around, you can find more information about that. That's it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. We're going to cut it over to a cut all this submission soon, but first we're going to tell you what we're watching next week. We're watching season 22's A Scorpion's Tale, or The Scorpion's Tale, something like that. It's in season 22.
We'll know next week.
It's got scorpions in it. So check that out on Simpsons World or wherever you're watching these episodes.
Sorry.
What is this show? What is this? So that's what we're going to watch next week. We're going to watch A Scorpion's Tale from season 22. And we're going to cut over to our Cut All This submission for this week. If you don't know what a Cut All This submission is, one of our lucky listeners is going to close out the show. And if you'd like to submit a Cut All This submission, you can do that on our webpage, specifically for that on wepodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. And this Cut All This, Jack, who's this one from?
This one is from June.
June? But it's July.
I'm sure you get that all the time, June, and we're sorry, but thank you for your submission.
Very sorry about that.
Take it away.
Oh my God. I think I hate the worst episode ever podcast. No, wait. I find it witty and informative. You can just cut all this. Night.